Great success. I can operate computers. Hello, everyone. I'm Alan. Welcome to this live stream of us doing some open source activities. I've said this introduction so many times. We are the Anchore open source team, and we're here to do some work. And while we're doing the work, we thought we'd stream it. And if any of you want to ask any questions or want to get involved, we'll show you the links and you'll figure it all out as you go along. Shall we dive in, chaps? Hello, how is everyone doing? All doing good?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent. What a great week it has been. Just to let everyone who's watching know, you can find out more about all of this stuff at anchor.com/open source. And all the code that we're going to be playing with is all on the Git repo if you go to github.com/anchor. And we have a little discourse. The quick and easy link to that is anchor.com/discourse, and that'll take you here. And we have a few things to do today. Has anyone got any? Well, actually, the very first thing we should mention, I think, is it's worth mentioning the fact that there were some new releases out this week. Syft, Grype, and Grant. I think, Chris, you were on the hook for getting those releases out this week, weren't you?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. There's also just, if anyone's interested, go check out the .github folder of the open source repositories that we have. You can see all the workflows and annotations and ways we set up the release processes. And there's like kind of a shared Anchor actions. So if you're interested in release engineering, it's all out in the open under our org. You can check it out how we do it.
It's in under Anchor/.github under there. Did you say?
No, if you go to
Syft,
in
each of the repositories.
just go to Syft,
right, okay.
and then you can see like how we manage like the Go release, the Go release or YAML config with setting up GitHub workflows. So if you're just interested in how to release code better, how to automate some of these things, it's worth exploring and reading these files. And if you have questions, feel free to tag me or check it out, and we can discuss.
Nice. So yeah, it's lovely to get a release out at the start of the year. Always good. And I think you can see them linked from there as well. Any other things we need to mention? Any important things to talk about?
Alan, you went to Plugfest today, didn't you? Was there anything cool that you learned from there?
So Plugfest. Is there still a public link? Yeah, there we go. So this, for those who don't know, this is the SBOM Harmonization Plugfest. Thank you for bringing that up, Chris. I do appreciate that. It started last year, and I think it's funded by CISA, but it's actually Carnegie Mellon University people on their security department who actually do the work, most of the work, and they asked for a bunch of organizations who have tools that can generate SBOMs to generate some SBOMs and send them in, and then they do some analysis and report back. And what they were really looking to report back on is the differences between different SBOMs. So there's lots of tools like the Syft, the SPDX people have links to lots and lots of tools that can generate SPDX. Like if you go to SPDX tools here, you'll find lots of other tools other than Syft. Obviously, Syft is on this list, but there's loads of other tools, and they all build slightly different SBOMs. Like within the standards, they comply to the standards in theory, but the research so far has mostly been on the Cyclone DX SBOMs. They're going to do some more research on the SPDX ones, but unfortunately, the session that I went to today, I can't really talk about because it was interesting, and they presented some numbers showing the differences between how things like in one SBOM generator, it puts a V in front of version numbers of packages, and a different SBOM generator doesn't. So it looks like they're two different versions because you've got 0.2.0 in one SBOM and V0.2.0 in another. And so, people, when they build their SBOMs tools make opinionated choices about how to represent the data, which is still within the standards, within the spec, but it's different. And I think that's one of the bits of research they wanted to do, is look at the differences between the different SBOMs. And they gave us a whole load of different types of code to analyze, like some Go, some C, PHP, Java, and so on. And if you want to see what we did, if you go to my there you go, my GitHub repo, which is here, you can see all the SBOMs that we generated and submitted. And I built them with the scripts that are also on my GitHub, which you can find there. And it's just a bunch of shell scripts that just generate a whole bunch of SBOMs, and we submitted them. I don't think it's secret to say I think we submitted more SBOMs than anyone else because of that script. I generated like every possible format that we can do with and without enrichment. I did them in SPDX and CycloneDX because I wanted them to have lots of data to do their research. They are probably going to make more public statements later, but at the moment it's all still underway. No doubt there'll be more about that, and we'll probably blog about it when it comes up. Thank you for mentioning that, Chris. I do appreciate that. Give me an opportunity to plug my silly scripts. Right. Are there any other things that people have an urgent need to talk about, or do you want me to pick something?
We did have a request on the discourse thread about this stream for a couple things. I don't know. I just wanted to mention it.
Perfect. Thank you, Will. I appreciate that. So this one was Tim, who I think is watching right now. So they asked a question about can I identify AI packages? And I think we had a chat about this last week, and Dan gave an answer. If I review all Syft results of Python from different sources, can I find a field which will tell me the language is Python? So this is slightly different, but
I think the answer to that is just yes. Like Syft JSON just has a field called language, I believe. So that's what you do, is look for artifacts that say they're the language Python in the JSON, unless I'm misunderstanding the question. But
so if I find a Python project that I happen to have here, no, yes, and I do Syft dot and spit that out as Syft JSON and pipe it through JQ so it looks nice. And then somewhere in there should be a field that's language. Oh gosh, Python. There should be some Python packages in here.
I think we haven't gotten up to the packages.
Oh,
yeah, there's an artifact section. Once you get to the artifact section, you'll see it. Right now, you're in the files and relationship section.
Oh my gosh, this thing is enormous.
Oh, you're right there. You're right there.
So if you
requires Python. I should have gripped. I should have opened this in more and then.
Oh
my!
Yeah,
Am I in the right place?
Yeah, you're in the right place. Let's go down just a little bit. Language Python.
There we go. Boom. Nice.
It should be caveated that mixed languages is not supported, and this is following like the packaging ecosystem in a sense. So there's like curveballs, for instance. TensorFlow. It's a Python project, but like the vast majority of that code base is C. Well, or C++. I can't remember which, but we'll label that as Python. And so I think that's like the one grain of salt I'll mention with, what's like detecting the language.
So Tim's in the chat and says, like, would it also happen in NPM and other languages? Would NPM show the ecosystem as NPM, or would it show the language as JavaScript?
I think we showed language JavaScript.
Okay. I believe you. I'm not gonna like scan Nextcloud like I did last time. That took forever.
It's also worth calling out that Python Software Foundation is currently investigating, because Python is used as like glue code in multi-language packages so often. There are lots of Python packages that are that like the core of it is in Rust, or the core of it is some C++ or even Fortran or something. That they're looking at like the Python package itself containing an SBOM of what it's gluing together, which will be something super cool if they manage to standardize it. But I think that's in the very early days. People are just arguing about it on the internet. But it's a known issue in the wider ecosystem, not just with how Syft is representing the data.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you so much. And there was another question. What was this one about? So this is deduplicating CVEs in Grype.
So I think this is a performance question. And so what this user wants to do is they have a big VM. I don't know much more about their use case, but they have a big VM, and they ask Grype what vulnerabilities it has. And this process also often dies with an out-of-memory error. And the reason for that is sort of that you can end up like the vulnerability report in Grype ends up being in memory at the same time. So you sort of have a struct representing every match, and a match is a tuple of an artifact and a vulnerability. So if you have, so you can end up with quite a lot of them. That's why they believe it's getting out of memory. And so what they are asking for is a command line switch where Grype will sort of only find a given CVE once, and just sort of report a set of CVEs present instead of building this giant vulnerability report. I suggested a workaround, which is basically to repeatedly send partial SBOMs into Grype. So do Syft with only the Python cataloger on, pipe to Grype, Syft with only the RPM cataloger on, pipe to Grype, as sort of a way of getting the intermediate state. That they would prefer not to do, I guess, because it seems like a lot of work to run Grype a bunch of times. But go ahead.
Are we certain that it's Grype is the majority of the memory pressure? Because it could very well be Syft.
Right. It's a little bit of, and I suggested a workaround before going down the, like, please give us a memory profile file of what you're doing route. And the reason for that is that if we want to change the property of Syft and Grype, that a lot of the stuff is in memory at the same time, like that's a really big ask. For example, like the Grype matchers don't know about each other, right? So like, let's say that the Red Hat like RPM matcher and the NVD binary matcher are both going to find the same OpenSSL CVE. Like they don't know that's true until both of them have finished. Nothing knows that's true. So that seems like a weird switch to try for memory savings. And yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what to tell this user. I wish that we had a quicker solution. I'm really curious what about the workaround is so unappealing.
But the workaround is, to summarize, it's run all the catalogers, like run Syft with one cataloger and then another cataloger, get like a set of SBOMs, and then take all those SBOMs and pipe them into Grype.
Right. Or maybe try to figure out like what the main catalogers are, right? So maybe I think I originally suggested run only the RPM cataloger and then run not the RPM cataloger, things like that. Just because because that's something you could do today with existing configuration that would result in like probably smaller allocations within Syft and Grype while it was running. If it's the Syft part that's running out of memory, though, it would be better to do that with excludes files. They also mentioned that, and they have sort of the same objection. They want to scan the system all at once and not repeatedly scan different parts of it. There's also some fidelity law. Go ahead. Sorry, Alex, you're trying to talk. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Like, so I'm just kind of asking, has the user tried running like Syft, getting an SBOM with all the catalogers, and like, is there added memory with just running Syft? So I think that's like kind of like the step one. Then you're getting like all catalogers, you're getting everything in one giant SBOM, and you can kind of rule out, um, kind of which side is causing the issue.
I don't know about that because I think when
Grype
you
seems pretty
use
fast, even on, like, I don't know, 23 meg is not, it's not small, but it's not enormous,
Yeah,
is it? I don't know, how big are we talking here?
right.
just,
And
be, ju- just because Syft would not run out of memory in the example that Alex put out doesn't mean that Syft as a library, when generating it, holding it in memory, and then generating like other things from Grype while that's still in memory and tacking onto it, right? It doesn't mean that one is not the pressure of the other. Like it could still be 95% of the pressure before you do that last bit of Grype that throws it over the edge. So it's like it could not boom on the Syft process, and it's just like a little bit of extra added in during the Grype that like sends it into the oblivion.
right. And I think to sort of, I'd like to sort of um, answer the user and move on. I didn't want to get into discourse and arguing with them about where the process is running out of memory. Um, but there is an assumption in the post that like, because of this behavior, I'm seeing out of memory. And if we want to make a code change, then we would have to validate that. So I think Alex had a really good point. The first pass is just have Syft write an SBOM to disk somewhere and then have Grype scan that. That's effectively what invoking Grype directly will do anyway, except that you don't have the vulnerability matching process and the file tree indexing in memory at the same time. So it might run better. It's also a nice performance improvement because you can generate an SBOM when the VM changes and then run Grype every day when a new database changes, which is nice. So that'd be the first thing. If you're still getting out of memories, and some of the workarounds we've suggested aren't going to work, we might have to dig in and try to figure out what it is about the situation that's consuming so much memory. Maybe it's lots of small files. Maybe it's too many catalogers that are on. Maybe there could be a number of reasons.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
think the
try.
thing we often ask is like reproducer, and I know that a lot of people are scanning containers that contain software that they cannot share, right?
Yeah.
Or and we completely understand and respect
Right.
that, but equally there must be some way, especially if. I mean, in the chat, they're saying a lot of it comes from RPMs and the kernel and stuff like that. Which
I think they're pointing the tools at a whole VM, which is a little bit different than a
right,
container, right? Because a container strips out, or ideally, like an image strips out parts of the file system that the software in the image doesn't need. Obviously, a VM is like a whole usable, bootable file system. So there's a lot more paths. So it really could be the file system indexer memory
right.
pressure that's
Also,
getting. Go ahead, Alex.
well, in the chat, so it looks like, so they're already sending an SBOM. So they're kind of already doing that per suggestion, which is where they're reaching that conclusion that, Grype is the issue, not Syft, which is surprising for me. But let's just say that's true, because I think that's interesting. I really want to see like a memory profile of Grype. And the good news is like we already have like profiling capabilities baked into Sifting Grype. I think the challenge is if you're getting OM, you're not going to be able to have the profile, I think, save off. So like when you start up Grype or Syft with like the, application name _dev_profile equals, say in this case, mem, it'll create an empty file, but I don't think anything's really going to that file until you hit the end of execution. So in order to get a real profile out of this, we would need like to curtail those results in some way so you can like really see the sensitive aspect. I haven't looked at a Grype profile in a while when piping an SBOM in. I'd have to go look to see what the sensitive factors are there. So
Whee! Let's see what this does. Right, I'm not going to let that occupy our time the whole time. Okay, so Tim says they've shared it a while ago in another thread. Yeah, if you could, like, link, like if we keep all the conversation in one place, if you want to put it in there, that'd be really super awesome. Machine memory has 20 gig. Yeah, it's I completely understand. It is a is it a it's not a niche, it's not an edge case, but it's certainly not the case that we optimize for on a daily basis, right? So we are going to have to do a bit of work for this. Cool.
Yeah.
And if you do have, you said you shared it in another thread. Yeah. Refresh our memory. Like if you drop it in, I think the latest discourse thread or in this chat, that'd be great.
Sweet. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for pointing those out, Will. I appreciate that. Do we have any needs discussion issues this week? Well, I mean, we do, but do we know if any of these are, ones that are pet issues that we need to talk about?
I don't think this one's so much of a pet issue, but I did discover last week when I was kind of going through the issues, the multiple Maven repositories. And I don't have a lot of experience with at my old company, we had one like artifactory that we'd go to, so we never had to set up this like kind of hierarchy. But if there's any like Java experts that are in the chat, or if anyone on the team has an idea of how this like setup would even work, we've never done like kind of a cataloger that can do online access that talks to multiple places in like a hierarchy. So like what that would look.
I mean, I can, just, it's basically exactly that. I mean, the Maven, it's like a standardized layout for each Maven repository. So you just have to have a root URL, and then, Maven can look for packages in different spots. It's fairly common to need to use more than Maven Central, or at least it used to be way back when I did Java. Maybe Maven Central has like everything in it now, but there were like the Sun things were a separate repository. Anyway, it should be pretty easy to do. In fact, I think in our Maven resolver, set it up so that it supports multiple repositories already, but we just don't have a way of passing in the configuration because we already had an existing only one repository configuration.
That
So
makes sense.
is this as simple as changing we have one Maven URL and that should instead be like a slice of strings? Is that
Yep.
okay? And then do Maven repositories, I'm assuming you could make them private and require authentication. Does Syft handle that today?
Syft does not handle authentication to them as far as I know.
And I'm pretty certain Maven solved basic auth. Does anybody know otherwise?
Oh, are you saying like basic auth in the sense that if you had the correct string, you can send it as the URL and have access via that, and you have to do any kind of like three-legged auth to do that? Or
Right, just
what do you-
just HTTP headers is as in like it's that like we don't need to pull in some like crazy lib in order to do auth. It's kind of more of if A, convince yourselves do we want it, like and B, does that mean that we would like slurp in creds from the environment, slurp in creds from a Syft config or otherwise? I kind of love the idea of keeping creds out of the Syft config so we don't have to ever deal with this. But I don't know if there's already a convention for environment variables from Maven that we could just be leveraging, or if there's some other store that would need to be accessed by conventions in Java. That I don't know about.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we take needs discussion off this and put needs investigation, because that's what I was curious about. If anyone had an idea on the call or in the chat about what the auth flow for this would look like. And I agree with Alex. We don't want to hard code or read this from like a Syft environment variable. If there's like a library that knows to go to some XDG like home path that has the configs for all the repositories and has the secrets that can read it into our client, that would be way better than just like self-managing it and storing it as part of
Yeah. And that's a great call out. Like if there's someone watching and you work with Maven private repositories, could you take a second to comment on this issue and tell us how you authenticate to them? That would be super helpful. I haven't touched Maven in a little bit, and so
Yeah,
I'd appreciate it.
the best practice. We don't want to just like we would do the research, we would get a couple of options, and we would like fumble around a debate, but if you just know because you're the Java architect at your medium to large size company, that would be sick.
I'm just making a note to post this out. I'll post it out on the Syft socials tomorrow to, get the word out. Awesome. So is someone going to change this from?
I got it.
Cool. What is this all about? Is this one we've recently tagged? .NET PE binaries, false positives.
No, this one's back in November. What do I remember about this one? I mean, it's certainly a funny one. Like we have a JRuby executable that we're claiming is .NET, so that's not good. I think, and like the main problem here, if I remember right, is that we're slurping up any like PE binary and parsing it as if it's going to be a package, which is just not right. What should be done is us, if we're going to be parsing binaries in that way, we need to be filtering them out, saying, hey, is this really from the .NET ecosystem? I think that's by looking at the version resources section within the binary. There is a draft PR up that does a large refactor to that cataloger. That's probably a good spot to put this fix. But I don't have the details for this, offhand. Oh, it looks like, I guess. Oh, hold up. Is that fixed branch?
No.
Oh, cool. Oh, this rings a bell. Oh, yeah. Okay. I forgot about this. There are indications of, based off of what you'll see in the executable as to whether or not this is probably built with the .NET SDK. So like you specifically be looking for .NET runtime libs. And like the problem is it's Microsoft. So like it's already gone through many iterations. So like there's a bunch of legacy stuff. Like if you're in this era, you're looking for CLR.dll. If you're in this era, looking for core CLR.dll, that kind of stuff. So there's a partial fix there. I think there's a to-do in this branch that's essentially, hey, what are all of the runtimes across all of the versions of .NET? I don't think I've discovered them all yet. I only discovered a small subset. So going through all the Microsoft documentation.
Is this someone who works on .NET all the time and who has done for a while would know this inside out and be like, yeah, but you need those, not these, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I hope there's someone that exists out there that knows the answer off the top of their head.
So I'm going to poke my good friend, Hayden, who works for Hero Devs, who do a lot of, he's just kicked off a new thing where they maintain old end-of-life .NET stuff. So I expect there are people there who have arcane knowledge from, the past that might be able to help. So I'll ping them tomorrow because they're superstars and I'm sure they'll want to help. Okay. So we don't need to do any more discussion on this. I'll ping, see if I can find some help and point them in that direction.
I think, again, it's a needs investigation, which is like, what do we look for in a portable executable to prove to ourselves that it's a .NET portable executable and not, for example, I presume this is a Java portable executable that's like the JRuby virtual machine.
Would you mind leaving a comment on the bottom of that one, just to say, what we need to do? So if I point anyone in this direction, they can understand what do they call it? What's it called? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I can leave some.
Understand the assignment. That's the word. Thank you. Sweet. Thanks, Tim. Right. Next, Syft shows Devel opened 8 days ago. Okay, that's not too old. So this one says Syft shows Devel version for getfs when getfs version command shows 360. Oh, okay. Where did this come from? Syft generated with development which was reported in.
Do we know if this is somebody who's on the Oh, never mind. Keep going.
So this is in a Jenkins image, and you run the Go cataloger.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely a known thing. So like, I think we would need to break open, get LFS and see what's in there. Actually, let me see if I can go grab it. But I mean, and I think it's in the comments, like Go 124 is going to be solving part of this by, so like whenever you see Devel as the main module version, you know,
We
it's
discussed this
just,
last week, actually, didn't we?
yeah,
We talked about this. Yes.
it's just another variant of that. So
Right. Whoops. Wee. Okay. And so that's mentioned in the comment, is it? Ah, yes. Okay. I can wait. Brilliant. Okay. So that doesn't need discussion. That just like needs us waiting, basically, doesn't it?
yeah, well, I was gonna kind of break it open just to see what it had. Conversion. Look this.
Just reproducing it with the latest version of Syft, which will almost certainly do the same thing. Get LFS. Okay. Ah, right. Yeah, there we go. Devel. And then the reproducer steps that says you can just run get LFS version inside the container to prove it. What have I done wrong? Oh, God. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
as far
that's
as I can
their
tell,
image. Okay. Sorry.
yeah, and as far as I could tell, there are no build flags, no LD flags, etc. that we could really glean off of this.
Yeah, we can't
So yeah.
we can't preempt this change until early February. But I was looking at the code, like that was going into Go, and like what we can start reading when that release does drop. So as soon as I think it's 1.24 or whatever, if you go to the bottom, I have the version on the issue. But when that gets released, Syft will be fast behind it to consume that behavior for the Go catalogers.
Yeah, I just wanted to go through the steps and reproduce it and get it so we can see the same thing. Sweet. Thanks,
And-
chaps.
Yeah, and even worse, I'm looking at what's in the binary. It's kind of one of those worst case scenarios. Like you have, it looks like 340 is embedded in the binary, but not in a way that's easily, rejectable anyway. So yeah, I think it's kind of basically up to like, hey, talk to the project to bake in their version into the binary in a slightly more kosher way. So like using LD flags, etc., or wait till 124. So
Sweet. Right. What's next? Syft scan in offline mode is slow. Ah, this is not super new. Uh-oh. So this is slow when doing something that's got a whole load of .NET stuff in it.
right, actually, this is so I just mentioned this earlier in the call. This is actually why I took a stab at refactoring the .NET cataloger. There's a draft PR out there, but this is kind of what started that work. What PR number is that? 3563 in Syft. Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you have like these large projects like this Roslyn project or SDK, like they have thousands of DLLs, and we're using a third-party lib Saferwall PE. It's a great library. We have a limitation where we can't use it in a mapped way easily, and so it does support like loading in the binary via mmap. So they have this other way, which is just loading the whole bytes for the entire binary, and that's the way that we're using right now. And that's not very performant, because if you have 15,000 DLLs and you're just reading them all into memory, it's just going to take a while. But the whole point of this PR is that we actually don't need the whole binary. We just need small portions of it. And so this is doing the work of carving out the small portions we actually need to get to. So it's dramatically less bytes read. So it should be much faster to like parse these projects, which have a ton of DLLs. The other aspect, which has not been implemented in this draft PR, but the other aspect is today we are considering DLLs kind of in isolation, and we don't look at project deps.json. So what is deps.json? It's like another, it kind of looks like it would be a packages.json equivalent. So for Node, for Node projects, you have a package.json that kind of describes, it's a manifest of like, here are my dependencies. And you have a package.lock, which is like, here's the version that I actually used when I used NPM tooling to create a Node modules directory and pull down everything. Well, so if I look at .NET, there's a deps.json, and one might be very tempted to think of that same analogy, like, oh, deps.json must be kind of like my package.json. The answer is no, it is not. It's actually it's output by the compiler, and so it can be useful in and of itself to say this is evidence of installed packages. So, which is something we're not really doing right today. Today we're saying this is evidence of packages are declared. So we're kind of treating it like a package.json file. Why does this matter? So this PR can go further in getting more accurate results by kind of combining the work of parsing all the DLLs, but then additionally considering deps.json that it does run across to combine together, essentially what look like duplicate DLLs. So what's an example of that? There's a project out there called Humanize, or C# project, and it's there's a few other variants out there in the world. They all kind of do the same thing, which is like I have some number, some string, something, and I want to represent it in a like human readable way. Well, that project, when you build it, it has like the Humanize DLL file, but then it also has resources for every language it supports, which ends up being like 20 different other DLLs it creates. But in essence, it's not 21 projects, it's one project. And the only way to really know that logically that's the same thing is to look at the deps.json. And so that's going to be yet one more thing to help out here on not only getting more accurate representation, but getting fewer things deduplicating, and also pruning off things that we know should not be there. So we hope for this scan offline to be faster in this case, but by scanning fewer DLLs and by scanning and by reading fewer bytes within those DLLs and leveraging deps.json more. That's the status in this one. I don't think there's, that's kind of like the summary on this one. It looks like in early December I had a needs discussion. I think that discussion came before this PR, this draft PR.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's sort of two improvements we could do. One is improvement in the way we invoke the portable the parsing of the DLLs itself, so that it allocates a little less, and then there's a draft PR up for that. And the other is considering deps.json to maybe save ourselves some time when we are presented with this type of project. And I think that's just an idea. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, that last one's not quite proven out yet. It's sound on paper, but paper's flammable.
Well, there's also a known bug, I think, in the deps.json where it doesn't get rebuilt on removal of certain dependencies and DLLs. So like if you go and rerun and get that updated, and you've dropped something, part of the tree of like the transitive dependencies is not pruned from it, and so you just like get these like large files that are going to carry it over. I think the issue's been open with Microsoft for like almost 2 years now, and it's one of those just dependency hell things that no one has gone in to update, and they're kind of okay because it doesn't affect the actual build system because the compile, like, it knows how to integrate all libraries together, but the actual deps.json just never gets kind of shored up and cleaned.
And I think there's like another caveat too. I think the whole reason why the PE binary cataloger was created was because the deps.json cataloger was not always accurate. So I think that's going to have to be kept in mind. I think specifically like the version resources in the DLL mismatched from what was in deps.json, and it actually was a DLL that was more accurate. So that I think if we do go forward on that path, we'll have to like tread carefully for version resources.
Okay. Are we done with
I
this
don't know
one?
if there's much. Yeah, I don't think there's
Yeah.
much else to discuss with this one, so I'll take
Okay.
off the main discussion. So
Thank you. Package merge behavior. There's another one. These are. Did you have a flurry of tagging stuff from November? What's going on there?
Can we
Is the date set wrong, or
Can we retitle the one we were just discussing too? It's really about like scanning when there are lots of DLLs. It doesn't really have anything to do with offline mode. So anyway, just whoever ends up following up on
Yeah.
that. Thanks.
I'll rename it.
so this was last mentioned.
2 weeks ago, I think we talked. I
weeks
remember
ago.
talking.
I think there's a from the live stream notes. It looks like maybe we talked about this 2 weeks ago. on
Okay.
Same
Yeah.
time, same channel.
I'll take off these discussion. So
Sweet.
This one just hasn't entered the flow for us to update yet.
I think we've talked about this. How do you pronounce that? Is it just traffic or traffic? Traffic.
traffic.
Ugh. So this has now got a needs investigation. I think. Did we? This is one of which crazes. Ah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we came to a conclusion on this one.
Oh, this is another Go one.
Yeah, it's we have a Go cataloger that mismatches what the binary cataloger would say, but we have a binary classifier configured. So we want to be able to kind of intelligently dedupe these. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but the conclusion was we kind of ultimately think this generic pattern search that the Go cataloger is doing should probably be removed, but in the meantime, at least being able to use better patterns that already are configured in the binary classifier, probably the right thing to do, or partition them out such that there are no Go things on the binary classifier side. They only live on the Go cataloger side. Does that ring bells, or was that
Yeah,
so crazy?
thumbs up, no notes to that. The Go cataloger should get out of the business of doing binary classification and vice versa. You should lean more on the binary classification to do the correct thing for the patterns that it's matching, and the Go cataloger should do what it's smart at, which is finding the actual version dug in the binary or in the metadata level when it does the read analysis.
Is someone
I'll
gonna...
leave a comment.
Sweet. Correct answer. Docs. Love to see documentation of this property.
This one's just needs research. I don't think there's any discussion we need to do for this one. Yeah, this is
Okay.
This is literally just go in and find the time to update the docs about CycloneDX properties.
Oh my gosh, I've refreshed, and you guys have been busy getting rid of them all, because look, there's only a few left. What's this one? Conan the Barbarian. Distinguish between normal and build requirements. Might be relevant for other catalogs as well, for example, NPM. This...
I think. Yeah, because in general, we would love to distinguish dependency types for every ecosystem, and it's just a question of finding the time to build it. or whether that ecosystem writes it down in a usable way. What do we have going on with Conan particularly?
I sort of feel like this might be in the state where it sort of just needs a proposal. I don't know if you guys think the same thing, but I mean, I think, like you said, I think we've all had nodded that we do want to be able to specify like build versus non, other type of dependencies. I just think we have details to figure out there that maybe a proposal will be the easiest to move forward.
Yeah.
Who's going to take a comment on that one?
I'll update it.
Thanks. We are burning through them today. This is super. Right, this is an old one.
I added.
These two look vaguely similar, don't they?
I think I even put links on them and said we should discuss them together.
Nice.
But I think there's sort of a general sense that SBOMs are reproducible and vulnerability scans are not. So the request here in the one is like, if I repeatedly run Grype against the same image, I don't get identical files. And I think the Syft one is basically, if I repeatedly run Syft against the same image, I don't necessarily get identical files. And I think that where we're sort of leaning to is that a vulnerability scan, because it depends on what's been disclosed in the world, like what vulnerabilities are known. A vulnerability scan is an inherently timely thing. It doesn't, like, we would expect there to be timestamps and like the digest of the vulnerability database used or whatever in it. And that should scan from day to day, but maybe an SBOM is more reproducible because the list of software that's in a given image, if the image isn't rebuilt, is sort of a fixed thing. So anyway, that's sort of what I put forth in the comments. But I wanted to discuss it here because we periodically get requests for reproducibility, and I wasn't sure if other people sort of agreed that like SBOMs are reproducible, but vulnerability scans are less so.
Well, this is
and
never
like-
going to be reproducible with a date stamp in it, is it?
Right. Well, the DB built, it is possible to be reproducible. In fact, those are the same. It's only the timestamp, which is when you actually invoked Grype. And so there's a suggestion in the comments of, well, we could have a config switch that, just does not ever write the timestamp. So it would be, timestamps would be written by default, but you have if you really want it to be reproducible, because you were, for whatever reason, then
It's
you
also
can.
got the file name in it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in this case, yeah. So you'd have to like have the same configuration. Yeah.
That makes sense. We wouldn't expect two invocations of Grype with different configs to have the same file, right? You could turn off something or change a switch. If you want not to have that, you can do just JSON and then use your shell to redirect the output into a file. And then the output will just be JSON instead of a file name.
For all non-major version bumps, should version also be redacted, given that there should not, like, I mean, maybe one thing has stuff added? No, it just has to be same version for the comparison for
Yeah,
reproducibility.
because the code may produce different results, may do different
Yeah.
things. So like you really want it to highlight. In fact, you really want it to, then you would highlight you did do something different. So in a case where you got a lack of results, and you use the same version, that might not be surprising, but maybe you have like a version of Grype that like you fix something, you expected there to be more results. If you didn't have that information, that you wouldn't know to be surprised, so to speak. So,
True.
but I mean, Will, on the philosophical topic, like the question is like, do we believe for Grype scans to not be reproducible, thus close this with as unplanned? Or is
I think
there,
that was the question. I've been trying to leave a comment about why I put needs discussion on things so that I don't have to remember. So if I look at a recent comment, there might be a right. We have some options. Right, we could close this unplanned. We could remove everything besides the timestamp, because really the like database SHA is, and the database build time is Grype's view of the state of the world. So like running Grype on the same artifact with the same database and the same version of Grype and the same config file, maybe that should produce byte for byte identical
right?
outputs. Having heard you talk about it, I'm leaning towards that one a little bit. The thing we lose is if Grype is being like run with an old database, then you can't tell from the file anymore. And I don't know how, like, that's something it's sort of a question for users, I think, is
You can.
like how can you tell Grype was run with an old database if we take the timestamp out of the file?
So there's two timestamps. There's the descriptor timestamp. So that's the one, that's when Grype was invoked. And there's this descriptor DB built. And that last one, so like the DB built one, is how you tell what is like essentially the age of the data.
Right. But what I'm saying is that if we take out the second one, like right now, I can subtract those two timestamps and see how old the data was when this file was run, like when this file was made. And I lose the ability, like I can tell this is an old file if I only have one of them. But if I have both of them, I can't tell whether something is failing to update the Grype DB or whatever, right? There's that little tiny bit of information loss.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. Like, you wouldn't be able to say I mean, the only thing you could really say is, so the configuration has, true, false on, fail if you have a stale database. And then in the configuration, there's a threshold for how many days it's allowed to be stale. So that's about the only information. You're right. You wouldn't know if you're on day 1 or day 4 of staleness, so to speak.
But I don't know. I think that having a switch to get rid of the invocation timestamp isn't that bad an idea, because I think if we got rid of that, like the files are identical pretty much. I mean, you used the output equals syntax, which wouldn't be identical because it makes the config blocks different. But I think those are the only two differences, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I because it's such a low lift, I'm kind of on the side of add the config switch to get rid of the invocation timestamp. If it was like a heavy lift, I'd be like, is anybody really asking for this? So that's my thinking right now.
Yeah, I like it too. And then people can sign it or whatever, right? And try to do like reproducibility unlocks nice things with verifiability. So okay.
Is it flag worthy?
What, like dash reproducible?
Yeah.
People like
I don't know. I feel like Grype already has a lot of flags, and so I kind of vote no.
If you're hesitating, don't send it. Yeah, if there's any hesitation from the team, I say that we err on the side of don't send it.
I mean, before this call, I wasn't going to build the feature, let alone put it in the command line interface. So,
I mean, the workaround is you pipe the JSON output through JQ and surgically remove that, and you're done.
you should not surgically remove the DB block, because then you're deleting important information. You see, the timestamps are the same in there, right? Like in the two invocations. And that's
timestamps underbuilt, not
underbuilt are the same,
yeah.
right? And the digests are the same. And so that tells you, because like one of Grype's key inputs is the database. So like we expect Grype running with a different vulnerability database to find a different set of matches. So I think just that timestamp and maybe the output file name are the only two things you'd have to redact to make them identical.
If folks are wondering why it's called db.built and that means data age, I'm so sorry. I should have not named it this. So it's named built and it should not be named built because it makes it sound like this is when you invoked write-db build to build the database. And actually what it is, it's the age of the data. It's saying like I grabbed all the upstream vulnerability data at this point in time. And that's actually what that field is. It just has a bad name. So I think in Grype DB6 schema, we're adjusting that to, at least in how Grype DB conveys that information. And so then it's going to be up to us to maybe rename that field in the configuration of the Grype output. So
without wishing to rat hole, I mean, partly I don't think anyone noticed until you brought it up. So you Streisand this thing by mentioning it, but surely this is a past tense. Like it was built at that time. That's when it was built. That's right.
You could use the same data pile, and you could build it today versus next Sunday, and so that's why it's important to anchor the timestamp to the data age and not because I could run GrypeDB 20 times in a day, but if it's the same data, it should be the same canonical database, even though it's not byte for byte the same database. That's why we can't use a database hash. It's because if you take the same data and you build a database twice, you may get different hashes. We use SQLite, and there's no guarantee. In fact, you're basically guaranteed to never be able to make the same database twice. So,
right. So this is the age that the oldest vuln provider ran. Is that right? This is the timestamp the oldest vuln provider ran.
yeah.
And which is sort of. So this is the vulnerabilities are current. In other words, there may be errors in any vulnerability that was disclosed or updated after that timestamp, is what that timestamp's trying to tell you, which is an important piece of information for a vulnerability scanner to share. But Bill, maybe not the right name. Anyway.
Yeah.
The subtle moving away from that screen that I did there.
Yeah, we've now Streisand into adding a built field per provider, so we're super accurate for every single one, not just the summarization of the last one in.
So we are pretty much out of time, and we went over last week. So I'm keen to let you all put your chairs on your table and go home, as we used to say when I was a child. But Tim's just pointed out that the Squash with All Layers PR has got they've responded to the comments. So if someone could take a look at that, that would be very kind. Thank you. And thank you, Tim, for nudging us about it. Do appreciate that. I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for joining. As always, you can find everything over on github.com/Anchore. And come and chat to us on Discourse, or indeed come and chat in here. We're quite friendly, I think. So, come and drop by, say hello. You might even get involved in fixing some stuff. That would be cool. All right. Any last minute words? Everyone ready to go?
I mean, I've been here the whole time, and I'm going to stay here. I'll be online for another four hours or so. So, get those GitHub notifications in.
The answer to those questions is no and yes. Right. See you all next week. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you later. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, guys.